for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved, divine.
Hello there everyone, and welcome to this video update with me here today. In today's topic, I wish to discuss the nature of our integrated personality. A while ago, I already talked about the ascended personality and how it blends in through the integration of spirit and matter, or spirit versus the body, and understanding that the body is sacred, our human nature is sacred, as well as our human personality. In many ancient, not just Eastern, but several different ancient traditions that still translate into our current guruism, there is this need to address the transcendence of the personality, because it is almost like automatically rendered as egoic, and we sort of have to, because it's so limiting to the nature of our expression of the essence, which seeks enlightenment, to sort of like negate it and transcend it. So through this notion, it's almost like self-evident that there is a lack of understanding of what the human truly is. There is almost like a need to bypass it, because this isn't sort of like the school of teaching that understands the galactic perspectives, in which every galactic civilization is so unique and different and specialized in its way, including the human. So the human naturally has to transcend itself. And we have also our modern notions of transhumanism and all those things that I've already talked about, and the artificial intelligence movement, and several different utilizations, because there's not just one plan for artificial intelligence, there's several, and it means different things within those different perspectives and means that want to be realized in a way through several different notions. So I recently was again reading in this beautiful book that I think I recommended to you before. It's called Blessings from the Stars, and it is by Virginia Essene and Irving something. I always forgot his last name, but it's a very beautiful book. It's very grounded, and it sort of like gets to the point, you know, and it also addresses some of the distortions of the New Age movement as well, which, as you know, I like to talk about it myself too in these general YouTube video updates. I go much deeper into the galactic roots and the Lumen Union journey in my Patreon work, because that's where I do my work. That's where we do true channeled information and transmissions. It's called Illumined Ascension, and it's for all who are truly interested in stepping on this path of merging spirit and matter, becoming an integrated being, and understanding that that's not just something you can achieve by one sort of means, just by meditating or just by becoming vertical, by negating yourself, your desires, your human expressions. You know, it's about truly going into the richness and depth of why we're here as humans and what's our current journey and learning curve all about. So in this book, you have different star regions, constellations, as well as masters of those energies, or they're working with those energies, and how they can assist us and are assisting us as influences for the humankind. And you go through each of these initiations yourself in your silent reverie, in your quiet space. And it's beautiful because it talks about this influence of the subtle energies and how to work with them. And as you know, it's also that a part that's deeply ingrained in my own teachings of the Illumined Union, which is true understanding of the self, of this body, of why we're here. And in order for us to move to the next step and becoming, as we call it, the Illumined humans, we have to understand, we have to do a synthesis of all that we were. We have to have the deeper understanding why it all served for. You know, we can't just see it as something that constantly needs to be transcended, because in constantly needing to transcend something, there is no meaning in that which you're transcending. There is a meaning to everything, even what we call ego. And personality is not directly related to ego. In many cases, ego personality does come to the detriment of our soul growth and evolution. But it's not supposed to be automatically seen as such. So in our modern guruism, you know, in many times this vertical component of transcending yourself, there is this almost like very rigid perspective on our human growth and the exclusiveness of what we call personality. So in this booklet, this man talks about how personality work or self-work or developing yourself is directly related to the work of your spirit meeting matter and spirit integration and higher enlightened absorption, right? So whenever we try to assess ourselves from the perspective of, you know, just going somewhere that we don't even know what it is, and instead of understanding where we are now, we're never going to have that full perspective. We're never going to have that vision of spirit and what it wanted to actually achieve through each and every one of those facets of life. And that's what these star regions and portions of the galaxy are. They're different facets of life through which there's a different focal experience of life, and it's filtered through these beautiful essences. So the essence work is translated into the way energy is being held, the way energy is being operated with, and how it moves into creation in its variable forms. So there's like a facet of variation of creation that we're all holding. So if you will read the book, there is a beautiful explanation how personal development and self-work and the work on your personality is not excluded from working with your higher spirit, and also how we can't just rely on the guidance system and project our desires and where we want to be to the spirit team, spirit guides, or even the celestial beings or light beings, because we have to do the work. And it's not just enough for you to be in the presence of a light being or channel a light being. You have to really penetrate yourself and every cell in your being with this subtle energy system that's moving us, and that's now, as you know, streaming forth. I'm going to talk about the galactic change in the next video update, but I just want to say that a lot of people come to this point in their own awakening journey when they want to become just more dualistic, because it seems easier to just negate a part of us and just move on to the next step without even knowing what this step we're currently embodying is about. But truly, there is nothing in transcendence, because anytime you want to transcend something, which, as you know, we also want to do with artificial intelligence, we want to transcend the so-called or perceived human body limitations. I've just been recently watching this video about transhumanism and how this Russian rich man is trying to create this robotic, you know, through which our human consciousness would be embedded and we would live forever and eternal. But that's really not life of true immortality that we know it in this level and dimension. It's just not a place for immortality. It's not reserved for this dimension, and therefore it's never going to happen. And, you know, people are going to perhaps have their experiments in that, and it's a part of their own suppression of their own human nature and understanding why humanity is the way it is and the physical actual issues we're dealing with at this time. And those are the facts we need to grow into, and then they're automatically and naturally transcended when we're organically accepting ourselves. So we should be embracing ourselves and our personality more. And a lot of times when people just want to meditate themselves onto the next level, I'm not saying meditation is not important. It is of the most importance, but not what it's used to get you to a point, you know, just like vertically, right, and translate you into the next octave without you really embracing where you are. There's a lot of people who will come into deep suppressions of their own human nature, which is the inner human child, and everything being suppressed due to the vertical expression only. And the vertical and horizontal versus the masculine, feminine, or the yin and yang components is a little different, and yet it's all one, because we're learning to grow into our own spiral of evolution. And that's where we are. So in this book, you actually go through these initiations in your own self-reflective space. You do them in your own time. They're just received as these subtle energetic blessings. And you just have to trust that they do have influence on you. And in the same way, they're subtly penetrating into our human psyche and our human personality. Because let's face it, there's so much about the human psyche we don't yet understand. Our dreams, you know, they're very multifaceted. There's not just one type of dreams. There's like several different aspects when we enter into the dream world. It's kind of like branched out. And there's so much we don't know about our human nature. And imagine that every other civilization that kind of like needed to grow in itself and become more than it was before, like it increased its potential. And once it did that, it became a group of beings just like vibrating and pulsating and then emanating these expressions as higher energetic reverberations onto other aspects of life, because in this galaxy, all these aspects are related and interconnected. I also will talk about on Patreon about in the next month, Galactic update about these starseed true missions, because a lot of this again is misinterpreted, because people think automatically I'm a starseed, I'm blessed, I'm just super filled with light, I have these amazing traits and abilities and all there is to it. It's really not like that, and that in truth propels only the notion towards seeing yourself through ego, because you don't want to see the full picture. We're blended into our human psyche, we're blended with our human personality, and that needs to be understood. And the galactic or star wisdom needs to be brought forth and kind of like merge with the human. That's truly what Illumined Union is about, and that's what I'm teaching. So you won't see a lot of gurus, as you can see, talking about that, because they never talk about the galactic perspective. They only talk about the human and human enlightenment without taking into account that there's so much and so many versions of reality. They're all multidimensionally connected. And the higher meaning of the galaxy and us as humans and our development, no one ever talks about that. As you know, gurus often talk about things in a very limited vertical way. Imagine there's one example, like every guru talks about us not needing to sleep, and we need to transcend the need to sleep, because when we sleep it's bad. I talk about it before, and I do understand that there's partially truth in that, because there's a sleep that kind of like hypnotizes us and keeps us locked into becoming very lazy. But there's also sleep, it's conscious, and we need a certain amount of sleep, except exceptionally now with these new energies coming in, because our bodies are constantly changing and adapting, and they need their rest, because at nighttime so much of that is being incorporated in these light filaments that are working from our light body and our light DNA level, influencing our human physical level and our human physical DNA. So all of these, imagine how many impulses and responses are happening on a daily basis. And no one talks about it. It's just so easy to put it in one box and say sleeping is bad, transcend the need to sleep, so that you will, I don't know, need to sleep maybe only 2 or 4 hours a night. It's not so black and white. First of all, you need to understand your body before you say anything like that about your body. As a physical ascension life force master, we come from that group. These beings, we work with life force and how it reinvigorates the bodies and how it changes the subtle structures through the subtle energy. Oftentimes it's called the Shakti energy, which is very subtle. And by influencing the cellular structure, which is also connected with the water in our bodies, as you know, like crystalline form, how the cells are responding, how cells are responding to this, how our bodies, as being a component of all of these cells and constantly growing and expanding as well, there's going to be so much experimenting here. And even group of light beings that come and do these experiments on a benevolent basis to keep life moving forward, so that it's adjusted to these new frequencies that are now streaming in. We can't just talk about things so black and white anymore. Life is changing. We are becoming galactic civilization. We're opening that door of possibility. Therefore, we have to start understanding ourselves as humans more. We have to start understanding our bodies, not just like reading certain articles or listening to certain teachers or gurus and prophets telling you certain things at a level that's just showing you one aspect of life, but there's so much behind it, like back doors that you never even tried to research or uncover it. You just take the fact of what's given to you without even addressing it or questioning it. I always question everything, and what resonates with me automatically is always this deeper truth of merging and understanding that our personal growth, our personality growth is no different, right, than the growth of our spirit into ourselves, right? When we talk about soul growth or the mystical teachings. So we need to develop this polarity, unification, and we're moving very fast into the understanding of that. And we have now a Scorpio new moon approaching, which is perfect for that union. That's what I'm making this topic at this time, to really question ourselves. and examine yourself, whether you still hold any kind of those beliefs that they're not really yours. You've taken them on through some source or resource or a person or someone you hold as on a pedestal or as an ideal. And when the inner self, the inner child, the human counterpart does not work with, it's almost like you're not friends with yourself. It's almost like we no longer befriend our own selves. We talk about self-love, and you can't talk about self-love without embracing your personality and understanding that it needs to grow out of this egoic clutching, it's almost like this controlling aspect, and it needs to blossom and open up like a beautiful flower, but it remains a personality. And when we work personally on ourselves, it's like we open ourselves and our body to be susceptible to more of the refined soul and vibrational work. So everything has to come in parallel. Anything that comes dualistically and exclusively at the one thing at the detriment of the other or the expense of the other, when something needs to be sacrificed, it's still dualistic. The only thing that needs to be sacrificed is always constantly leaving that which is old and no longer works behind. And that's all there is to it, and it's so simple. But there is almost like this obsession with bypassing who we are without any understanding of who we are, why we're here, or frantically and even fanatically discussing ourselves almost like we're these godlike beings and we can do anything. Well, we have that possibility, we have that choice, but physically in this dimension, in this density, growing towards it, it's work. And it does include our personality level, because that's why you have so many people so fragmented. As a teacher, they might come off a certain way. They have lots of this wisdom. As a person, they might totally suck. I don't want to say anything bad here, but it's true. You have a lot of these polarized people. If you met them like privately or personally, they might be very like stuck up or something like that. And they're like, I met a few people like that, and I couldn't believe they can talk about these things and they actually hold no love. In the way they communicate to other people, the way they think themselves to be. It's almost like now I have this knowledge and I can carry myself a certain way. And humility, it's almost like gone, and growth stops like immediately towards the higher levels of vibrational expansion. So it's very important for us to know where we have these personality, almost like mistraits, mishaps, and understanding them as indicators of where we still have work to do, and that it's absolutely fine. And we don't need to judge ourselves, but we do need to embrace where we are. I'm never going to talk about things in a way that it's kind of like overly addressing the illumined aspect. There is almost like a natural propulsion towards illumination. It's in everyone. It's in our light DNA. It's ever since the moment of our creation in the infinite space-time continuum. Once we entered, there's a natural seed planted. It's like a magnetic pole towards illumination. But as we explore these vast realms and experimented with life in different life forms, we needed to understand each and every one of them, so we could see ourselves through the reflection of Source learning about itself. You don't see Source saying, "Oh, I've created the human in a very false image. It's super bad. What is this personality about? Whew, I need to transcend that, because obviously I didn't create it the right way." I'm not saying all aspects are created by Source. There's a design that is the Immaculate Design, which is impeccable in its creation. And yet there's distortions of it that come, of course, through the ego, but even that serves a purpose, because the further you withdraw from that which is your core creation self, then eventually, you get these experiences that come from that level of being so withdrawn from it. And it's like boomerang. Eventually you're being swung back, right? So it is important to work on ourselves on every level, to understand all of these imperatives are absolutely needed, because you might have a tendency to ascend and still keep forgetting about your human self, your human interactions, the love for your human self, the desires of the human self. You don't have to outgrow, you don't have to transcend them. You have to outgrow them as they no longer serve you. And then you're automatically, very organically ascending, because that's what true ascension is about. It has to come through love. It's not mental based. You can meditate yourself out of it. A lot of the meditation is mind based and third eye based and vision based and holding that focus. And there's also what we call the heart meditation. Neither are the correct, right? There is the synergy of all of these. Do you see my point? We are a spiral. When we meditate on that spiral, it's like life becomes us, and we embrace life back into who we truly are, and we feel love, and we're getting softened. You know, recently I had this vision, like cotton candy spiral of life just coiling around me, and Spirit said, that's what we're working with. That's the highest magnetic charge. That's the highest power. It's this power of love and the softening. And through that, our personality is naturally just shifting, because it's becoming softer, not as rigid. But it doesn't happen just by us needing to transcend it, because what we constantly need to transcend, we truly don't love. We don't want to see that mirror. So not a whole lot of teachers will talk about this. It's almost like for them, personality is like, yuck. Something they don't even want to talk about or work with. And it's like, ugh, it's so beneath me, you know? And it's funny. If you say or see anyone who talks or expresses things in that matter, you have to feel whether that's coming from love or not. And I've talked about a lot of distortions that come through the New Age movement as well. They're very much discussed in this book. I recommend it to you. And they are important for us to address. But it's also important for us to see how our humanity responds to this. Why in the first place we're drawn to these things. Why do we have these tendencies? All of this is a mirror. And if you want to transcend the mirror, how will you see yourself? How will you see where you are now? What needs to be seen? What needs to be loved more? What needs to be grown out of, you know, like natural growth, natural expansion. If you just don't want to look in that mirror at all, and you automatically render it as less than. So it's not wrong to have a personality, but when you grow and you become more like a master, your personality is more charismatic, it's more magnetic, because it's more love fueling you. And some people might be charming on the outside, you know, that I'm not talking about that kind of charisma when you have the external charm. That can fool, you know, there's deception in that as well. But that internal magnetic resonance, when you're just absolutely living in that integrity of life teaching you, and you're informing life back, and there's a natural communication unfolding. Okay? So, becoming like cotton candy, softening ourselves, loving our inner child, and doing that work, because a lot of people who maybe were just focused on self-retreat, constant meditation, deprivation of the senses, desensualization in that way in order to transcend, to grow out of it, negating the human aspects, the need, the desire is still there. You don't actually transcend it if you don't love it. But you maybe suppress it to a certain level that eventually will unlock itself when you're ready to see it. That's why most people don't even see it, because they're not even ready to see it. But once you come to that step and you embrace living with love and opening the heart, not just the mind, you will see, and you're going to be like, wow, I have so much pent up in me still. Whoa. And that scares some people, but it's not scary at all, because these things are all of source. They're language. They're the communication of the cosmic heart telling us what's important for us. What are the next steps for the human journey to take? That's why we have so many problems and issues in our external world, because most people don't even see these issues, or they don't want to see them. They could be resolved like this, I tell you, and so many people say the same. If enough people just woke up to that heart love and inner child work, and merging their personality, what we call the soul, creating that beautiful blending experience of illumination. So thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful in a way. You can always find my work on Patreon. That's where I put a lot of love and devotion to. It's called Illumined Ascension. You can find other things on my webpage as well. I do have to let you know that I've recently had a beautiful experience, because I talked about this on Patreon with the light body merging. There's a lot of intensity coming through at this point. It's going to just increase into the Scorpio new moon, and then towards the 11/11 it will continuously build up. So I was guided to create these bath salts that are actually crystalline, these stones that I still have from the crystal cave, and I've totally refined them into this crushed powder, because that was actually the only thing that helped me when I soaked my feet, because there's so much energy coming through me. So I actually realized I still have a lot of these old crystalline baths available on my page, and I sort of discounted them. They're half off now because Spirit showed me the need to ground, and how these tiny crystals influence the connection of the etheric and the physical bodies. So the body needs to be addressed at this point, and I feel the Scorpio new moon is a call for many of you to move deeper into your physicality, to move deeper into the body. It's not just meeting of a man and a woman, it's a meeting of the spirit with the body. Like this first relationship we have, it's with our body. So you can visit my page, it's my crystal shop, and you can get that. They're now half off. They're quite huge. You just have to stir the blend. You can even add your own essential oils to it, but it does help you to have that finer connection when this light is pouring through these certain channels in our body and the etheric system. So it works miracles for me. I did a new version of it, so I would like to sell these that I already have and just give them away to create more in the future, to open up space. So as always, it's an honor. Thank you for being here. With love, wisdom, and power, as always, in devotion to serving life, and life serving us in return. Many blessings.